Hello and welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to be back. We took a little bit of a break for the summer. It's 2021 right now, July 7th, and Pastor Bob has been ensconced in preaching over the past month, and even to his physical and mental detriment, but to our benefit as the audience of the Messy Disciples. We're real thankful to have Pastor Bob here with us. How you doing, Pastor Bob?
I'm doing great. Shout out to all my preacher creatures who I just hung out with for a month who are watching the channel. Thanks, guys, for checking in and seeing all the cool new content.
Yeah,
Gio, you've been out and about too, right?
Yeah, I saw both oceans in 3 weeks, and that was pretty cool. I did dip my feet. I dipped my feet into one. It was way too cold. And the other one I dipped my whole body into. It was fantastic. Yeah, we're super geeked to have all the new followers and all the new audience, and we're loving all the feedback that you're getting. It's helping us to make the content better. Pastor Bob and I are actually going to talk about something that I think is really pretty cool today. So I'm going to give a little background, because actually, Pastor Bob, I did not tell you this because we didn't get a chance to talk, but how I thought of this topic was real interesting. It was through a contact that I have who got me thinking, and very loosely here, I'm going to give you as best a recollection as I can to kind of launch this off here. But we started talking, and I can't remember exactly what he said to me, but he's like, hey, did you realize, or did you know that there is a particle inside of our bodies that we all have, that's the only thing that cannot truly be scientifically explained? And the study that they do shows that it contains, I don't know what the correct word is, but he was saying that it contains blood that is not ours. It does not match the blood that's in our body. And it's said that is the Jesus particle, the God particle. It's known scientifically as the say it again for me, the
Higgs boson.
The Higgs boson particle, and that's what we're going to talk about today. That this God part. So I ended up looking it up. I ended up reading all sorts of different stuff on Google. I mean, I don't know that I've seen a topic that has so many different kinds of information as this particle here. And so I figured I was going to ask Pastor Bob about it. And is this proof? I don't want to call it scientific proof, but is it scientific proof of God? And of the fact that we are made of and by God through the discovery and the action of this Higgs boson particle. I don't really have anything else that I could lead into better than that, Pastor Bob. Please take it away.
Well, I think it's one of my favorite recreational subjects is physics. And it's not because I'm good at it, but it's because I think it's really great thinking and it's very creative. Can I tell a quick little story about me in a physics class in college?
I'd love that.
Okay, so I was taking a 3-hour physics and chemistry lab in college, and I was just having a blast. My wife hated that I was enjoying it so much because it was at night. It was a 3-hour class at night, and it was torture to her. But I was just geeking out, and the prof would be talking about something, and then I would jump in, and I'd be the only student jumping in because everybody else is just trying to cooperate and graduate. But I just love physics. And we talk about time travel, talk about all kinds of stuff. It was great. The guy who taught it actually worked on Ronald Reagan's Star Wars project. So he was a physicist who became a pastor, just great mind.
Cool.
At the end of that, it was my last year of undergrad. At the end of the year, when I was supposed to graduate, he calls me into his office and he says, Bob, you're going to fail my class. And I was like, I know. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense because you're the only student who participates and gets it. Why are you failing my class? I said, because of the math. So all the tests were math. I could talk about the subject, but the math, it was just nearly impossible for me to do. And it wasn't because I don't like math. I like math. I'm just not very good at it for some reason. And he says, and I was leaning on my wife this whole time, right? And so she was helping me survive my homework, but she couldn't take my test for me. And so I did fine on the homework because my poor wife. And so she hated this class because I was leaning on her, and then I would be the goofball who was talking or whatever. He says, "Listen, you've earned an F." He says, "But I'm gonna give you an A
Wow.
because I know you understand it." And I was like,
Wow.
"Wow!" And
Wow.
I was like floating out of his office, and my wife was walking. She wasn't my wife then; she was my girlfriend then. But she was walking up, and I was floating like 3 feet above the sidewalk. And she's like, "What's with you?" I was like, "I got an A in physics," and she knew I was going to fail. And she got a B minus, and she was so mad.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I love physics. I'm always reading about it. I love what it does. I gotta confess right out. The math is too hard for me. Um, I've often thought about going back to like undergrad or like a junior college and taking more math because I like math. I'm just for some reason not good at it. Anyways, that's a little intro story. Are you ready?
I am. And thank you
Okay,
for
so the
sharing.
Higgs the Higgs boson particle is something that is measured on something called the Higgs field. Peter Higgs was a scientist, and his crew, they developed a field that you could measure things mass. If you passed a particle through it, it would affect the field, and you could measure its mass and cool stuff like that. And the Higgs boson particle is the idea behind it is that it's almost like a force field that pervades the whole universe, but it's invisible. It's like air. Like air is invisible, but you can see things be affected by the air. You can feel air, air can move things. And so that's kind of what the Higgs boson particle is. Um, you can detect it, you just can't see it. The Higgs field gives mass to elementary particles, but particles that have no structure and particles that cannot be divided, which this is where they get the God particle thing. These particles that it measures that have no structure and can't be divided are literally the building blocks of the whole universe. All right. So that's kind of cool. So these particles that we're talking about, um, they envelop and they hold together the whole universe. Now you might be saying to yourself, how is that different than atoms? Well, you have like atoms are like Russian stacking dolls toys. Do you play with those?
Yeah, yeah, the nesting dolls.
Yeah, nesting dolls, right? So you have atoms, and then inside of it you have protons, and inside of that you have neutrons, and inside of that you have electrons. And electrons are particles, and neutrons and protons have things called quarks. But we're talking about something that's even more fundamental than electrons. You might say to yourself, well, how far down can it go? Atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons. Well, we don't know how far you can break everything down. And that's kind of the cool thing about science is they're still discovering things. But our current understanding about how we break down all those things is something called the standard model. Now, this is really important. The standard model. That's how we currently understand how and what things exist in the universe. And in the standard model, there's two fundamental particles. The first one is called fermions, which sounds like a toy you buy for your kids at Kmart. And that's matter. Fermions is matter. And then the second one is boson particles, which are forces that help you to measure things like mass. But one of the things that people never knew before they found out about the boson particle is they really didn't know how to measure mass. Like, where did mass come from? And so the Higgs field that I talked about in the beginning helps us to see particles that pass through the field and so we can see their mass. So the more mass something has that pass through the Higgs field, think of the Higgs field like a sheet on your bed. And if you roll a ball on it, it leaves a trail and you can see its indentation, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how the Higgs field measures mass. If the Higgs field didn't exist, the world itself wouldn't exist. Like air wouldn't exist, and planets and stars and nachos wouldn't exist. So if we didn't have the Higgs field, I know that may be the most devastating one of all.
Prolific.
If it nachos. Yeah, I know. So we need the Higgs field because I love nachos.
As do I.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a little bit of a weird digression. Anyways, quantum mechanics teaches us about the movement of things, like the movement of waves and the movement of air and the movement of the planets and all this kind of stuff. So quantum mechanics is kind of fun. So what is the boson, the Higgs boson particle? If you were to take a really gigantic rock, which, Gio, you strike me as the kind of person that might do this. If you were to take a big rock and you were to go to a body of water, the rock would not be the Higgs boson particle. The rock going into the water would not be the Higgs boson particle. The water would not be the Higgs boson particle.
Okay.
But the wave that happened because of the rock, that's the Higgs boson particle.
Interesting.
Yeah, the wave is the excitement of particles. It is the force of that reaction. And that is kind of cool.
Wow.
The Higgs boson is they call it in physics an excitation or a force of the Higgs field, which is our current standard model for knowing the standard building blocks of the universe. And so I think I grew up on Star Wars. Did you grow up on Star Wars?
I think everybody in our age group did.
40 years of a really cool thing. I think the thing that they discovered proves that the force exists.
Interesting.
Interesting. So it is
It's funny, but
it is the force.
It's funny, but it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to hear this. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So the phrase that's in every single Star Wars movie in the franchise is the force is an energy field that binds everything together. It pierces us. It moves us, and all that. That phrase is in every Star Wars movie. That's the Higgs boson particle, and it was theoretical because according to our standard model, you needed these two things, fermions and bosons, but they'd never been able to measure a boson. Well, they finally were able to measure one. And when they did, it created it's not the conclusion of physics. It's actually the beginning of a whole new world. Remember when Columbus tried to find a route to India?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he ran into something called America?
Yeah.
That was a whole new world he discovered by trying to find something else. That's what happened in physics. They were doing something else, and they discovered the Higgs boson particle, which was always theoretical. And in Europe, they always had this idea that there were
many great discoveries occurred that way.
Oh, yeah. And so now that they've got the Higgs boson particle, this does open up a completely new way of understanding physics. It's a whole new world of scientific discovery. What's cool about it is it's going to challenge our old models for knowing things, and it's going to give us a new model for exploration. And I think that that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's all of it in a nutshell.
Okay. So let me jump back in. So, I mean, it certainly is exciting to hear that this is, well, let me start here, because here's where my confusion originally came in, is the naming of it as a particle. So what you just described to me was more like a sheet, or, you used the term bed sheet, and then, the changes in the bed sheet being the boson, the bed sheet being the Higgs and the boson. So is it one thing? I mean, the name particle in my mind, creates an image of, like, you broke it down from, atoms all the way down, quarks and so on. And, so now I'm thinking it is a thing that is the smallest undivisible thing that we have. And And so, can you tie those two things together for us? So A, where does this exist? Is it exist everywhere? In other words, it's part of the dimension. It's part of us. We're traveling through this at all times. I don't know if anything of what I'm saying is effectively conveying my question. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, it totally is, because this is the kind of trippy part about what they've discovered. I use the bed sheet to talk about the Higgs field, and the Higgs field helps us to, measure things. And so if you rolled a bowling ball on the sheet of your bed, if you rolled a ball, if your dog ran across your bed, if kids are jumping on your bed, the Higgs field, it acts like that. What's the mass of the object that's doing the thing? But that moment when your sheet flaps up because something affected it?
Yeah, the wave part of it.
The wave part of it, that's the Higgs boson particle.
So it's something that's created by something else?
It's affected by the mass, but it's its own thing. It is a force. So watch, go like this, blow on your hand. Your hand is one thing, the air is one thing, but what you feel is the boson particle.
Interesting.
The ability for you to feel the air.
Interesting. So it's that link between
those
two things. Okay, so then bring us to God. So how does God play into this? If what we just had there was an extremely masterful description of physics. Very much just science coming out of Pastor Bob's mouth, and that's absolutely incredible. But then why is it referred to as the God particle, and how does it affect us? What is the purpose of something of this type?
I think there is a caution and a really cool thing. Let's go to the really cool thing first. The really cool thing is that an unseen, unexplainable force that holds all things together has been proven to have existed. And I think if you just take the words that I just said and you were to put it into a religious context, they would call that God, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so, that's kind of really cool. Something that was just an idea, something that we knew was there but didn't know how to prove, got proved. And I think for people, they say that's why they call it the God particle, is because that's what people want to do with God. Is they know God exists, they can't see him, it's undeniable, his force that moves through the world, we see his effects everywhere, and now we have this thing that can help us to point at it and say, and here's the trouble, here's the caution, that's like God, right? And so you can point at that and you can say, this is proof that God exists. Well, I think it's proof that God exists in this way. God created it. But God is not a boson particle.
Well, no, and I don't think that it necessarily was. I didn't think my interpretation of it was that.
No, not yours. Not yours.
Now that you're talking, I'm starting to think of something. So
yeah, go ahead.
If this, I loved your Star Wars reference, and I think it's, also proven by physics that it's a force. So let's just use that. This force. If Jesus was aware of this force, which he was, then it would make a lot of sense. One of the things that you and I talk about a lot on our channel and in these videos that is, certainly a recurring theme is be kind. So, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm listening to your description of, this, how, ripples and how things, so if we're all laying on the bed sheet together, right? And we're all in this bed sheet together doing our own lives, then it's using this analogy of the blanket and the force of energy, then it's really easy to see how any of our actions can affect others by creating these ripples. So by being kind, it must create a better, we already know things are vibration. We already know things have frequency. We already know that we're connected with that and that we have that kind of communication. Then it could also apply on that plane, where if we all were kind to each other, maybe that sheet would stop rippling so badly in some areas. Like you said, well, the corner might flip, well, what if you're on the corner? What if you're not in the epicenter? What if you're not in the middle, right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Anyways, how does that play in? Am I anywhere? Am I off base here?
No, I think you're exactly correct. And I think it's related to how we know God actually exists. So the proof that God exists is bigger than a boson particle. It's bigger than an electron, a neutron, a proton, an atom. It's bigger than a collection of atoms. The proof that God exists is Jesus Christ. And so he is the definitive proof that God exists, and his empty tomb is proof that he is who he says he is. And so if you're looking for definitive proof, even at a molecular level of God's existence, look at the person of Jesus. Now, who is Jesus? And this gets to what you're talking about with kindness. Jesus is the one who is, he's taking that sheet and he's doing something, and we're receiving it. So I'm going to switch analogies. Let's go away from a bed sheet and let's go to when we were in elementary school. Did you ever play parachute games?
Like where you take something and throw it up and watch it come down?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
parachute.
Parachute with the big parachute. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, of course.
Did you do that? Yeah, okay. Of course you did, because we grew up in the same era, right?
Right.
So
I have one in my backyard right now.
Yeah, you do.
I swear I do. Go ahead.
I love that. So when you were a kid and you were playing that game, when you were shaking all the balls in the center of the parachute, was there ever one kid who was just kind of stiff arming it?
Of course, yeah.
And it ruined it, right?
Yeah, of course. Whenever there was somebody there, it just didn't work.
Yeah. Or if you tried to do the lift it up and put it over your head and sit underneath.
Yeah, I mean, any action that was outstanding like that wasn't that typical action would have some kind of a weird, right? Yeah.
That's exactly right. So Jesus takes this Higgs field and he starts doing stuff with it, and the people around him start doing it too. So he's kind, and then they become kind, and it turns into this wonderful activity. However, there's people in the world who stiff arm that kindness of Jesus, right?
Right.
And Jesus wants to envelop us with his grace. And so he shows us how to do it, how to live in it. And we sit under his grace, and it's great. But there's somebody who lets go because they think it's funny or whatever, right? And so that's how God affects the Higgs field, is he does stuff and we can feel its effects. And some people try and mess it all up, but he's still going to be doing it. So I think that relates to your kindness thing. Well, and that Jesus came.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, you said if Jesus is doing something that's creating a specific effect, and then everybody else around him is creating this. It speaks to me then of the importance of all of us doing it together, because what it sounds like is that the more we do these things together, the more, I don't know, maybe the balls are bouncing better. I don't know.
Yeah, we're having fun. I mean, it shows people that God exists when we take Jesus's lead and we play with the sheet the way that he does. When he's kind to us and then we're kind to other people, that's as big as a God particle, because people will say, wow, why did you do that? And then you can say, well, don't say this, but in effect, you could say, a previously known thing that was invisible that everybody knew existed, but we didn't know until the person of Jesus Christ came up and showed me kindness. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know that's a mouthful. You're not going to say that, but you might say the reason why I'm like that is because somebody did that for me once, and his name was Jesus. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And so I love the boson particle because it's further proof that God exists, that he created everything. But when I want to know God, when I want to know who he is, when I want evidence for God, I look at Jesus Christ. I want to take this in a different angle. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I do think that the Higgs boson particle does help us to understand how Jesus performed his miracles.
Oh, cool.
So God created everything using natural material, right?
Okay.
The world, even at the molecular level. When Jesus was going around and healing people, he was restoring them to their original created order. Blind people could see, deaf people could hear. Well, how could he do that? Well, simply by the word of his power, that's for sure. But what scientists have found out is that your genetics actually have the ability to repair themselves and to repair what's broken. So, for instance, if you have an autoimmune disease, if we could just speak to your genetics, then your autoimmune disease could go away. But we'd have to be able to speak its language. I think it's very profound that when Jesus performed miracles, he often, or cast out demons or whatever, or stilled the storm or whatever, he would speak it. And when he was speaking, it was affecting the very fabric of nature. Do you hear what I just said? Fabric of nature?
Mhm.
It affected even the Higgs field as we know it. And so he was using the force of his word and him being God to affect things at the molecular, at the atomic, and up into the physical level. So when he was saying to the blind man, see, he was literally speaking that healing, and it was happening physically inside of him. It was real. It wasn't a magic show. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's
so
pretty cool. Because you did
if
say that the Higgs boson field is the particle is a force.
yeah,
So, in it's just crazy how I should have thought of this and I didn't while I was listening to you, but I was thinking of it in one direction. But what you're saying is that Jesus could change that direction
yep,
and knew how to change that direction and was able to do that. And that
yep.
by changing that direction, then you can change, I mean, technically go back in time or
You
change
could
something. I mean, if you're making a blind man see again and you're saying that his original state was insane, then you're actually going back in time in that one particular thing. But being able to know how to affect that Higgs boson field is pretty cool. We should probably raise some funding for further research on this topic, because I think maybe there's an angle here that we might be able to help Jesus perform miracles through modern science, being able
I
to
know I can't help Jesus perform
figure out a
miracles.
way figure out a way to affect people's Higgs boson fields and help them get better. But no, I think and I'm joking when I say it, but I think that the way to do that then maybe is Jesus, for people that don't know him already, uh, because that's the proof is in the pudding. There is that is how exactly it's done.
And what I think is cool, so I agree. What I think is cool about that is everybody is searching for the God particle. They're looking for that key which can alter reality, space, time. Um, People are looking for that thing, and everybody admits that it would have to be something that is super powerful, which is why they're scared of it. Because if they were actually able to create something that powerful, it might destroy everything. And so they admit that there's this fundamental, powerful, super powerful force that exists in nature, and they're trying to capture it, understand it, and they call that God. And all I'm saying as a theologian is that does exist. Like the God particle exists. Well, actually, sorry, the God exists. And we see that he can alter time, space, reality. We can see that he can do that because of Jesus. Jesus shows us that great power of God that can change your life.
Awesome, Pastor Bob. Awesome. Great explanation of this. Guys, this is a topic that I'm sure is going to raise some questions or some conversations, and I know that Pastor Bob and I would love to see your comments below the video. If you have any topics that you think might be tangential here, or if you have additional questions about what we've talked about here today, please put them in the comments box below. And normally Pastor Bob will be the first to respond, and if there's a way that I can respond, I'll jump in as well. But we love the conversation. If there's more that you'd like to hear about this topic, please let us know. Pastor Bob, is there anything about this topic that we didn't touch upon today, or that I didn't ask that I should have or could have?
literally tons of stuff about this subject. I'd say that there's some good TED Talks out there that can kind of break it down. So if you guys want to do some independent research and then we can chat in the below, be sure to click subscribe and notifications so that way you know when we're chatting and when we're commenting, and then you can get updates. But there is more stuff about this. I would recommend first step, watch some TED Talks. And then from there, I don't know, hit Amazon, pick up some books. It's really wonderful that we're in an age where new discovery can be made in science, and that it can strengthen our faith in the God who created everything and the way that he proved himself to us in Jesus.
Awesome. Thank you, Pastor Bob. And thank you all for joining us here today. We look forward to seeing your comments and your likes. Like Pastor Bob said, please subscribe, hit the notification button. Pastor Bob and I are going to be starting to put out regular videos again for the rest of this year. So please pass it on to anybody that you feel might benefit from our conversations and the stuff that's coming out. Thank you all, and have a great day.
See you guys.
Thanks for watching today. It's been a great conversation. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation, so go ahead and click subscribe. And if you hit the notification bar, it'll let you know when new videos are coming out, which is really important because all of our videos are about new and current events that are happening. If you have any questions, go ahead and contact me via email. It's great to have you a part of the conversation. Thanks for joining us. Bye.